the rise of China, the development of transatlantic relations, and a range of environmental issues, not least the challenge posed by climate and environmental change. This last topic will constitute one of the foci of today's session. And also for us, as the University of Bonn, sustainability research, or better, research on sustainable futures, is a central scientific focus, and therefore permit me to outline a number of thoughts towards this topic. Security and international cooperation are attaining increasing significance as factors of global sustainable development. The list of reasons for and examples of this is long. The most prominent entries on it are the current COVID-19 pandemic and climate change. Neither phenomena are affected either by state borders or differences between political systems and can only be managed in an internationally coordinated and cooperative fashion. The development of several vaccines against COVID-19 in such a short time frame is an amazing success of international cooperation and science and technology. However, the varying level of access to these vaccinations throughout the world highlights the nature and extent of global inequalities. The pandemic will not be defeated until everybody, everywhere, has been given access to a vaccination. Before this has been effected, the risk of new variants remains a constant threat. It is in the interests of wealthy nations, therefore, to work to ensure equitable global access to the new vaccines. Climate change advances at a slower rate than the pandemic, but exhibit similar structures. But vaccines are against the pandemic. Clean energy is against climate change. Now, access to energy is known to be a crucial factor in human development. An equitable world would not use less energy than it does now, but more. The supply of this energy in a climate neutral form will be one of, or perhaps even the most important task in the coming decades. It is true that the technologies required to meet this challenge are in place. This is another amazing achievement of the international science system. A complete transition to solar and wind power would not have been a technical option only a few decades ago. However, the mere existence of the requisite technologies is not sufficient to ensure the global transition in energy generation and supply. Solar and wind power come with a huge demand for land, and an area several times greater than that of Germany would be required to meet global energy needs. Much of this energy will need to be produced in areas of high wind or with long hours of sunlight, and will require new global supply chains. This will not only present new opportunities for many countries, but it will generate new threats in terms of stranded assets for countries with rich fossil resources. It is crucially important that the global community take a cooperative approach in order to make the disruptions involved in the global energy transition, therefore. Now, land is not the only requirement for clean energy. The large-scale expansion of solar and wind energy generation requires a massive supply of a number of rare minerals, for example, which are not distributed homogeneously, and many of which, such as manganese nodule, which are found in international deep waters, are difficult to access. Clean mining techniques and smooth international supply chains will be a further factor fundamental to the establishment of a reliable and clean energy supply. And in parallel, we also know that we need a massive expansion of the recycling industry for the development of a clean energy world. These are just a few examples of how the quest for sustainability will revolutionize global supply chains and the centrality of international cooperation and security to sustainable development. Now, before finishing, I'd like to thank the members and staff of CASIS and all those who have worked so hard to enable this conference to go ahead during what remains a challenging time. In particular, I'd like to thank Professor Schlie, Professor Meyer, Dr. Feltz, and their teams. Whether here in Bonn, the city of the United Nations, or other parts of the world, I would like to wish all participants a highly rewarding time at the 5th International Security Forum Bonn. Thank you very much.
Rector Hoch, many thanks for your kind words of introduction. And now I would like to introduce our speakers and present some ideas of the topics ahead. First of all, I would like to mention our partner institutions, and we are most thankful that we can cooperate in this year as well with the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, the America House Nordrhein-Westfalen, the Hans Seidel Foundation, the American Institute for Contemporary German Studies, the George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies, the German Council on Foreign Relations, the German Atlantic Society, and the Friedrich Naumann Foundation. Given the global pandemic and the restrictions of public life, we deeply regret that we once again are unable to hold our forum in the usual format, which would bring experts from around the world to Bonn for a 3-day conference. However, we are at least able to meet in person tonight in a restricted format to discuss the future of transatlantic relations. And it's a great pleasure to host, at least digitally in these turbulent days of German domestic politics, key personalities of German and international politics. I will start to welcome, in the order of the speaking list, Peter Bayer, Coordinator of Transatlantic Cooperation in the Federal Foreign Office and a newly re-elected member of the German Bundestag. Ursula Heinen-Esser, Minister for Environment, Agriculture, Conservation and Consumer Protection of the state of North Rhine-Westphalia. And Woodward Clark Price, Chargé d'Affaires ad interim at the United States Embassy to Germany in Berlin. Yesterday, we started with our pre-event on common values, security, and democracy. And this pre-event will develop into a new research project of cooperation between our center, the University of Aberdeen, and the University of Notre Dame in Indiana. European and American societies face the growing plurality of religious beliefs. The challenges our societies face are twofold. To what extent can religious speech be tolerated in the name of the right of free speech? And how can rights of religious minorities be preserved in an environment of increasing tensions? Conflicts of today concerning religion and politics arise from different contexts. I mention this because it is our understanding that questions of democracy, as well as the rector has outlined, environmental issues, are an integral part of transatlantic relations. This is the new approach of our CASIS Center here in Bonn, that international security is firmly committed to a broader understanding. This is also the organizing principle for our research areas and, of course, for our Bonn International Security Forum. The Center for Advanced Security, Strategic and Integration Studies concentrates on the interdisciplinary study of traditional foreign and security issues, such as interstate conflicts, competing international systems of order, and a return to geopolitics, as well as non-traditional security challenges related to cyber, energy security, terrorism, or human security. The forum also serves this purpose. It's our aim to bring together politicians and academics, students and experienced practitioners in order to foster a real dialogue. Tonight and tomorrow, we will have, among others, as speakers, Alexander Count Lambsdorff, Richard Byrd, Janusz Reiter, Jürgen Trittin, and Anna-Katharina Hornitsch. As in previous years, a workshop on strategic foresight and scenario planning is an integral part of our forum. this is also a possibility to develop scenarios that might have an effect on transatlantic security in the future. We would like to build a strong alliance of partners and establish our university as an institution of excellence to bring forward a better understanding of national security. New realities need new ideas. This has been the motto of last year's Security Forum, and this could also serve as a motto for the discussions in the next 2 days, when we will take stock of where the world stands and how we can give a push to transatlantic relations, especially regarding cooperation in areas such as trade, climate action, or research. In the strategic competition of the future, the primary concern on both sides of the Atlantic will lie on how to facilitate a life in freedom, security, prosperity, and sustainability. In this global contest, North America and Europe, this is my firm belief, will only be able to survive if we stand shoulder by shoulder. This emerging context will be a quest in the struggle for trade, technology, industry, health, safety, security, environment, and human rights standards. The questions to be discussed against this background are as follows. Can Europe choose its own path and build a more mature and forward-looking transatlantic relationship? Can Europe overcome its inner divisions and lasting imbalance within the transatlantic relationship? How can we make sure that partnership includes consultations as a result of the most recent disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan? Has the rise of China shifted Washington's security priorities elsewhere? How can Europe be pushed to invest in its defense without developing more autonomous security interest? Can we make sure that America remains committed to the Atlantic Alliance? How will Europe have to transform to meet the growing economic and political challenges from China and Russia? The current tectonic shifts in world politics affect the relationship between Europe and America. China's rise is in particular the cause of global power redistribution. As Tony Blinken has described, China is the biggest geopolitical test of this century. China's rise has been one of the causes of the global redistribution, as well as one of the driving forces behind the increasing frequency of confrontations. And against this background, it is obvious that a whole day under the wise leadership of my colleague Maximilian Mayer is dedicated to the study of the geopolitical challenge of China. Genuine relations can only flourish if there is an open and honest exchange, if there is a real dialogue between practitioners and academics, between experts and between those who are preparing their career, students from all over the world. I'm looking forward to a lively discussion, and it's a great pleasure to host as our speaker the Member of Parliament, Peter Bayer, and again, congratulations on being newly elected in your constituency, Mettmann 2, and on having defended a constituency in a very narrow horse race. Congratulations. Peter Bayer is currently the coordinator for transatlantic cooperation, and it's a great pleasure to have you here back at our forum. And Peter Bayer, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ulrich Schlie. Thanks to be part of today's session. I'm very happy to be back at Cassis Center. I'm also happy to see that many friends are joining us today. I greet Clark Price and Ulla Heinen-Esser and many others. So thank you for that. Transatlantic partnership is the key to a realistic and a modern German and European foreign policy. It has been in the past, and it still is today and will remain in the future. So the next Bundesregierung, the next German federal government, whatever it will look like, this is not clear yet. We just started after the elections last Sunday. It must stick to a strong transatlantic commitment. Of course, no one knows what a world will look like in 30 to 50 years from now. I will, however, venture a prediction. I'm quite sure that the world will be far more worth living in if Europe and our closest allies outside of the European Union, our friends in America, that is the United States of America and Canada, continue to team up in a firm alliance. This alliance might not look the same as in the past or as today, but it has to be a strong and firm one, because that is the foundation of our prosperity, peace, and stability, our shared values. Transatlantic relations entered a new phase with the election of President Joe Biden. And as everybody knows, at the last Munich Security Conference at the beginning of this year, President Joe Biden said the transatlantic alliance is back. And that is good news. Since then, there has been some progress in our relations, some challenges, which are, some of them have been solved, some are still on the table. I can only imagine Nord Stream 2, for example, but on the positive side, also the return to the Paris Climate Accord and so forth. And there's also, as a very new addition to our relation across the big pond, AUKUS, Australia, UK, and the United States of America, this security pact relating to the Indo-Pacific. It is, of course, necessary to focus on China. It is the style of the negotiations between the United States and Australia that raised some eyebrows on this side of the Atlantic. We need to trust each other, and I think we do. Discord between Western allies only helps our systemic rivals, Russia and the People's Republic of China. Rightfully so, Presidents Biden and Macron agreed some days ago, when they were on the phone, that the situation would have benefited from open consultations among allies. And that is, the Europeans should also intensify our engagement and our activities in the Indo-Pacific regions. Different from some members of the current German federal government, from our coalition partners' side, I am strongly convinced that Germany and the European Union should really focus more on the Indo-Pacific, also engage from a NATO perspective more, take that region of the world more into perspective. Not that we think we could really change things there, but we need to show a strong commitment to our Canadian, American friends, and some other countries in the region, that we care, that we understand that the world is developing and that things are changing and shifting. So that is something to look into more in the future. So China poses the greatest challenges, I think, for the West in the 21st century. How we handle China will decide whether our Western democracy is an attractive model for the future or not. The United States of America and Canada are much more aware of this threat than most countries in the European Union. You've all seen over the past 2 or so years the discussion about sovereignty and autonomy on the European side. I think it's a legitimate interest to strive for more sovereignty, but let there be no mistake, we should do it the right way, not in a way that might expel our allies on the other side of the big pond, but to involve them. And I also think it would be a naive concept to think that without a nuclear sharing, without the protective umbrella, which is above our heads in Europe, that secures us from threats in the East, we could prosper here in the European Union. So we, I think, have no other way than show a strong commitment to nuclear sharing. But again, at the same time, our friends on the other side of the Atlantic need to understand that the Europeans have their own interest, legitimate interest, and we want to build up in a defense industry. We want to build up digital capabilities, but again, not to be mistaken as a fortress Europe, but as an open network. That is something that needs to be looked into the future more than we did in the past. The European Union and the United States of America need a joint strategy on China. That is something that is still missing. I think it is super important that we concentrate jointly, strategically jointly, more on China. And trade must be a central element on that strategy, as well as green energy and tech partnerships. China has successfully negotiated a free trade agreement with democracies. Even if the so-called RCEP trade deal does not contain high standards, this agreement is a great success for China and its propaganda. I am strongly convinced also that the Western concept, the Western alliance needs an update. To this day, there is no free trade agreement between the European Union and the United States of America. Currently, the EU and the United States are still in negotiations on whether the US tariffs on steel and aluminum are to be removed. And I personally have led not negotiations, but a vivid discussion for several hours with USTR, United States Trade Representative Catherine Tai in Washington in her office mid of July, and I will continue to do so on my next travel to the United States in 2 weeks. Currently, these negotiations are still ongoing, and this is no modern trade policy between close allies that we still have these protective measures in place. I firmly believe that an efficient trade agreement containing highest standards between us on this side of the Atlantic and the American friends will safeguard prosperity and jobs on both sides of the Atlantic. The trade agreement between the European Union and Canada, CETA, is the gold standards. Even during the pandemic, trade between European Union and Canada has increased. And I still strongly hope that my country, that Germany, that my parliament, where I'm a member of, will finally make it possible to ratify CETA, which we have not yet done, because it's important for both sides of the Atlantic. As a general rule, the more trade we conduct with each other, the more resilient the West will be, the more independent we will be from China. And a trade agreement would help very much to spread green energy innovations as well as digital innovations between Europe and North America. In my view, the most electrifying project in transatlantic relations currently is the Trade and Technology Council, the so-called TTC. I hope it will be for a good start. The inaugural TTC ministerial meeting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, takes place almost as we speak. That is today. Both sides, both teams, on both sides of the Atlantic, the Europeans and the American friends are currently working on the wording of the final communique. And it is our common goal to advance shared democratic values, expand and deepen our transatlantic trade and investment ties, and update the rules of the road of the 21st century economy. It is vital that the West sets the standards. As part of this Transatlantic Trade and Technology Council, 10 ambitious working groups will work at ways to intensify cooperation on trade and business, with a major focus on technology issues across the full spectrum, such as the setting of standards and norms, supply chains, and export controls. TTC, should everybody understand, not only as not as a mere economic platform, that it is a platform that combines economic aspects, trade-related aspects, with technology and foreign security policy aspects. That is something that really should be one of the platforms, transatlantic platforms, to develop, that concentrates on these important issues, that brings us closer together and develop a transatlantic relationship for the future. We must do everything possible to make TTC, therefore, a powerful platform, a powerful tool that sparks lots of innovations. We must do everything possible to ensure that TTC does not suffer the same fate as back then in 2007 and 2008, the Transatlantic Economic Council TEC, that nobody really knows of anymore now, which is not very good. Now, to finalize, to sum it up, while it became clear over the last few years that transatlantic solidarity is not a law of nature, this does not mean that the Atlantic Alliance is obsolete. It is the key to a future worth living in. We must campaign tirelessly every day for this partnership and friendship. And it is our own responsibility, and it is our sole decision to be made, and our political will, if we want that to happen or not. Thank you very much.
Peter Bayer, many thanks for a forward-looking statement, which is much on our working list, which should be discussed and presented in the next 2 days. Thank you also for your strong commitment and clarity. And if I may, I would like to ask you whether you at least would allow one question after your speech. I know that you are under serious time constraints. Nevertheless, where would you see North Rhine-Westphalia in the picture of the transatlantic relations, of what we could bring forward? And is there something in particular which you would like to mention where we should have a special emphasis on in order to make profit for our home state?
Yeah, as somebody who was born and who lives in Northern Westphalia, not far from Düsseldorf, the capital, namely in Ratingen, just to make that point. Now, I obviously know that, we are about 18 million people living in Northern Westphalia. We are there's so many people having jobs, and we have a strong industry. We have a lot of innovation in North Rhine-Westphalia. We should use that powerful industry that we have, innovative industry, to connect it even better to the other side of the big pond. Let there be much more concrete projects on the technology side. That is something I think we should explore even deeper, and something good can come out of it. Second thing is more concrete on the renewable energy side. I know that there's already a number of bonds between some of the states of the United States of America. For example, the state of Minnesota, the political side, some universities, some think tanks, and some companies are reaching out regularly on a annual basis and travel to Northern Westphalia. And there's a good exchange on that level, with a special focus on green energy, renewables. There's a great interest on the other side of the Atlantic in these things. And I think that could be also a chance for North Rhine-Westphalia to see how we can explore with other states, California, for example, what we can do both together for not only universities, but on projects that are relating to these high technology things. And whenever I'm in the Los Angeles area, I see a great interest in these issues because Germany, and especially North Rhine-Westphalia, has a great reputation. Waste management, green energy, renewables. There's so much that we can explore. And North Rhine-Westphalia being in the middle of an international region in Western Europe, and bordering with the Netherlands, with Luxembourg and Belgium and France and so on in that region, we have a lot of international experience in North Rhine-Westphalia. This government, this North Rhine-Westphalian government, has a lot of connections and relations to other countries in the European Union, and there's a strong interest on the political side to intensify the transatlantic connections from Düsseldorf to Washington and beyond. So let's work on that. There's a treasure that that is on our table that we can use to make something out of it.
Thank you so much, Peter Bayer. I take that as a starting point to introduce also what has been established here in the last year when we presented a report on partnership in leadership, a new beginning. We highly appreciate your commitment also to CASIS. We wish you all the best for the next days and weeks, which will be interesting, to put it that way. Wish you every success, and looking forward to cooperating with you in the future. Thank you very much for making it possible. We'll keep you informed on our outcomes. And
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be with you, and wish you very good and productive discussions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. So the next speaker in line is Woodward Clark Price. He is the Chargé d'Affaires ad interim at the United States Embassy to Germany in Berlin. He is a career diplomat. He previously served as the Director of European and Regional Affairs in Washington. He also served as Economic Minister Counselor in Berlin from 2016 to 2019. And he had previous assignments, including Deputy Chief of Mission in Yerevan, Armenia. He also served in the Russia Directorate in the National Security Council in Tel Aviv, Cyprus, New Delhi. He received his Bachelor of Arts in Economics from the University of Chicago and his Master of Arts in International Relations from Johns Hopkins University in Washington. So it's always a great pleasure that we can count on the support of the United States and their diplomatic mission to Germany, but also to the consulate and the Consul General in Düsseldorf. Partnership in leadership, a new beginning, has been the topic of a report which was presented by a task force on the future of transatlantic relations, chaired by the Henry Kissinger Professorship for Security and Strategic Studies last year. And we have established on the basis of that report a working program in transatlantic relation. And therefore it's a great pleasure to have again the official representative of the United States at our forum here in Bonn in September 2022. I now see Minister Ursula Heinen on the picture, not the Chargé d'Affaires ad interim. Minister Heinen, we know that politicians have to be very flexible in these days, where you have serious time constraints. And if I may put it that way, to quote Clausewitz, it's always the unexpected. I suggest, I was about to introduce Woodward Clark Price, who will be the next speaker. Now, as I see that we have you here, at least in a car traveling from Düsseldorf to remote places, I suggest that you speak to us. I will give you a minute to introduce you, and then the floor is yours, if I may. And I do hope that the traffic jam will not prevent you from reaching your next encounter. So Minister Ursula Heinen is the current Minister for Environment, Agriculture, Conservation and Consumer Protection of the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, Düsseldorf, since 2018. From 1998 to 2013, she was a member of the German Bundestag. She held a degree in economics from the University of Cologne, and she is on the state as well as on the national level one of the leading experts in environment and agriculture of the CDU. Minister Heinen, it's a great pleasure to have you back. We all know that there are established ties to Friedbert Pflüger, and that you delivered at an earlier stage several speeches in his seminars. We are proud to have you here in our forum on transatlantic relations. So thank you so much for making it possible, notwithstanding your serious time pressures. Thank you for coming.
For coming. Thank you very much, Mr. Schlee. Thank you very much to take part on your session. We stopped on a parking place because we need a constant situation, because it's very difficult to do such Zoom conferences in a driving car. So we stopped, and we have time, or have had time to have my speech. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Green Deal is Europe's new growth strategy. It should aim towards a sustainable development of the European economy and a future-oriented society. The European Green Deal is about boosting innovation. It is about quality food. It is about modern mobility. It will create new businesses and markets all across Europe. And first and foremost, it is a modern growth and development strategy that is more giving back than it takes away. With these words, President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, introduced the debate on the European Green Deal in December 2019 in plenary of the European Parliament. From an ecological and economic point of view, we face many challenges in Germany and in North Rhine-Westphalia too. There is first and foremost the global challenge of climate change. We want to reduce our carbon emissions until 2030 by about 65% to become carbon neutral by 2045. We face negative natural events in context of climate change, like severe flooding, drought, heat waves, and forest decline. It is crucial to us to adapt businesses and communities to the unavoidable implications of climate change. Pollutants in air, ground, and water, and the fast consumption of surface threatened by the quality of life in the countryside and in cities. The scarcity of resources limits our economy and industry. The digital transformation changes the working places and challenges us to create new jobs with higher demands of technical skills. And we then need to have these experts competing with other countries like United States of America or China. Furthermore, here in North Rhine-Westphalia, like in most coal regions, we face the complex challenge of structural change. In the Ruhr Valley, coal mining started to decline decades ago, until finally the very last coal was dug up in 2018. In the meantime, the brown coal areas to the west of Cologne have begun to change, and open cast lignite mining, as well as coal-fired power station, once the region's main industry is going to be closed. In Furthermore, it's going to close down over the next decade, and we lose a lot of working places there. We need to find new business ideas, workplaces, and industries to establish a modern and sustainable society and find answers to socio-economic challenges in both regions. I'm sure most regions in the world can relate to these severe challenges in one way or the other. The global pandemic of COVID-19 has brought to light how vulnerable our global logistics and networks are, whilst also giving a great push to the digital transition. In North Rhine-Westphalia, we recognize these challenges as driving forces for innovation and the green transition. The general solution to all those problems is solidarity and cooperation. The European Union comes from a European alliance on steel and coal. 70 years ago, we won as a team, as a union. And most important, we developed shared values and freedom in the countries of Europe. Today, we move from traditional steel production and coal to clean industries, renewable industry, energy, and sustainable production and consumption. The Green New Deal will be successful if, and that's necessary, if we cooperate as a union. The Green Deal is a game changer in Europe when it comes to reaching the necessary CO2 reduction in line with the 1.5-degree target of maximum global warming. We firmly believe in the common targets that was agreed on in December 2015 by 197 members of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. But Europe alone will not do the trick. Therefore, we highly appreciate that the President of the United States, Joe Biden, signed the Paris Agreement as soon as he entered office. Europe will lead by example at the 26th UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow starting in October. However, in Glasgow, uniform methods need to be negotiated and must be described. We need multilateral rules for the whole world in order to combat the challenges of climate change. Europe cannot do this on its own. All countries, regions, and cities around the world must have the same goal and work together to deliver this planet as a worthwhile place to next generations. We need to be partners in this. The new Green Deal is a roadmap to be climate neutral society with 50 practical steps to a sustainable future. It gives important directions for a green transformation of economic, structural, innovation-oriented policies. For example, the update of the Union framework for the taxation of energy products and electricity will set clear and modern conditions for clean and renewable energy. The sustainable bioeconomy will play a key role in the transit from a fossil-based to a bio-based society. A climate-neutral circular economy is one of the main targets. In order to reach a climate-neutral society in the future, new kind of industries and lifestyles should evolve that are geared towards a circular economy. Priority must go to investment in and support of the transition to a zero-waste society. Resource efficiency and better life cycles of materials and products are keys to a true circular economy. The turn from fossil-based society to a decarbonized circular economy using sustainable materials, resources, and clean energy is central. We no longer want to shift health, environmental, or climate problems from production to a product's end of life. We want to further rethink, reuse, reduce, and recycle. The idea would be to better utilize regional potentials. Pioneering spirits from all across Europe are already turning the green transition into green business opportunities. In North Rhine-Westphalia, the green economy, better known as Umweltwirtschaft, it's a typical German word, is a real trailblazer. NRW was the first in Germany to come up with a strategy to enhance the local green economy. During the last 10 years, it has developed into a broad-based innovation and transformation sector which combines environmental, resource, and climate protection. The various companies and businesses offer solutions in the fields of resource efficiency as well as climate and environment-friendly products and services. They are part of the ecological transformation to a green economy. The Green New Deal is about boosting innovation. To be innovative, investors need confidence and reliable frameworks. Reliability is the basis for long-term decision-making. The Green New Deal is a roadmap for action. The framework gives stability to investors and innovators. With this strategy, we make the cost of the transition fully sustainable. In North Rhine-Westphalia, we embrace the challenges as an opportunity for innovation. The future of our society will basically be made up of new technologies, for example, quantum computing, scientific, biological, and artificial intelligence. Okay, the EU has identified 140 key products that are imported from so-called sensitive ecosystems, where strategic dependence must be assumed. Those are imports we cannot do without. At the moment, scarcity and microchips are slowing down car production and many other industries. Most of these products come from China, Vietnam, and Brazil. With every import of technology, foreign values and moral concepts are imported too. In June, the magazine Technology Review wrote about a policy helmet from China as a stark example. Chinese policy uses a special helmet with facial recognition technology in order to measure human temperature from a distance to verify the compliance with quarantine regulations. The system works automatically with no human interaction, like interrogation or identity check. It is important that we achieve a green and secure future with technical and especially green innovations. Human rights, democracy, freedom of speech are very important values we need to protect. Technology sovereignty means also to protect and defend our European moral concepts that have developed over the last 70 years. At the Munich Security Conference in 2021, the Distinguished Reflection Group presented the report Mind the Gap, Priorities for Transatlantic China Policy. Their advice can be summarized in one word, and the one word means cooperation. Our contribution to a sustainable development includes investment into the green transformation of society and economy. In order to combat the consequences of the pandemic and to increase sustainability in North Rhine-Westphalia, we support adaptation to climate change, circular economy, resource efficiency, forestry, and green infrastructure. A special focus is on green technologies in order to accelerate the green transformation. The Umweltwirtschaft, or our environmental economy, is a powerful contribution to solidarity and economic cooperation on a global scale in the context of sustainable development in the way it was agreed in 1992 in Rio and put into effect in 2016, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Those who invest in sustainable businesses will dominate the markets of the future. In its updated innovation strategy, the North Rhine-Westphalian government has identified 7 innovation fields. The strategy for the next 7 years puts a circular economy, green technologies, and adaptation to climate change on a high priority list, along with digital technologies. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals serve as a guidance and encouragement. We are also looking for local, regional, and international partners. The research and business communities need cooperation, interaction, and exchange. To sum it up, innovation and achievement of the 1.5-degree target can go hand in hand. Both need international partnerships. In times of climate emergency, nobody wants to miss a chance to create synergies. I hope that as an international alliance, we can successfully tackle our shared challenges. If we combine our skills and vigor in Europe and beyond, we will be competitive and strong partners. The Green Deal roadmap can be a growth strategy for the whole world. And I'm convinced the Green Deal and the target of a zero-waste society can be a growth strategy for Europe and beyond. Thank you very much for listening. And I send you many greetings from the parking place.
Minister Heinen, many thanks for a substantial and forward-looking introduction. Many thanks also for taking your time under these precious circumstances, and all the best for the next meetings and for the discussions within your party. All the best, and looking forward to seeing you again at the forum and at CASIS. And without further ado,
goodbye.
And without further ado, I would like to hand over to the Chargé d'Affaires ad interim at the United States Embassy to Germany, Mr. Woodward Clark Price. I have to admit that I presented your CV in absence already, as we made a slight change of the speakers list. So I'm not going to repeat the CV with which you are familiar anyhow, and our listeners now are as well. It's a great pleasure to have you as a speaker for the introductory impulses of our Bonn Security Forum. Thank you very much for making it. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Schlee. I just want to confirm that you can hear me. Do I
yes,
come in clearly?
We can hear you, and we are very much looking forward to listening to your words of wisdom.
Great. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to join, obviously, this virtual International Security Forum. The timing and the topic could not be more relevant. It could not be more timely. I think you're aware, and those of the listeners are aware, that polls have consistently ranked climate action as one of the most critical issues for German voters in last weekend's elections. And we'll be following the coalition negotiations with great interest. We already see some very interesting developments in that front. A majority of Americans also want our country to do more to reduce the effects of climate change. You've seen John Kerry and his interventions with our European friends. President Biden understands this. He ran on the single most ambitious comprehensive climate platform of any presidential candidate in US history. Hours after being sworn in as president, as you know, he rejoined Paris. And you remember that list of documents that he had on his desk, and the top one was rejoining Paris. A few days later, he signed executive orders placing climate squarely at the center of every single government decision, including for the State Department. The issue is grave. As President Biden said last week at the United Nations General Assembly, we're fast approaching a point of no return. According to the most recent IPCC report, climate change is impacting the planet in unprecedented ways. Weather and climate events are increasing in both severity and frequency. After a summer of extreme weather, drought and flooding, fires and hurricanes, heat waves and rising seas, the stakes have literally never been higher than they are now. The scope of this threat has no borders. We all have to act. The United States and Germany are committed to achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement. We are taking decisive action to keep a 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature limit within reach and to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions across global economies by 2050. To achieve these goals, however, we will need to increase our commitment to the development of the innovative clean technologies that can transform energy systems. The President's Build Back Better agenda includes getting 100% of the US's electricity from clean sources by 2035. The Biden administration is also working closely with Congress to make the critical investments in green infrastructure and electric vehicles that will help us lock in progress at home toward our climate goals. Making these ambitious investments isn't just good climate policy. As you know, this is something that requires all companies to work together and actively on this agenda. It's a chance for each of our countries to invest in our own futures. This is not only a moment of urgency, it's a moment of opportunity to grow our economies, with clean energy. It's not a question of growing our economies or having a clean climate. It's the challenge of doing both together. It's an opportunity to create good paying jobs and to spur long-term economic growth that will improve the quality of our life for all of our peoples. The United States and Germany are working in a number of fora, both multilateral and bilateral, to take advantage of these opportunities. Through the US-EU Energy Council, a range of technologies are being developed and implemented: nuclear, solar, wind, hydropower, onshore, offshore wind, energy efficiency, clean hydrogen, carbon capture, biofuel, batteries for both storage and electric vehicles. The list goes on. The United States and Germany are also part of the PTEC, the Partnership for Transatlantic Energy and Climate Cooperation. You can't talk about energy without talking about climate these days. The combination of climate and energy emphasizes the need both to diversify energy sources and to prevent the use of energy as a coercive tool. The rise in gas prices raises serious concerns regarding the reliability of the existing supply and security in Europe. Across administrations, the United States has been clear that we and our partners have to be prepared to stand up when there are players who may be manipulating supply in order to benefit themselves. Here, Germany has a really important role to play. Short term, the most important multilateral forum right now is the upcoming COP26 in Glasgow. This is a critical decade for action. COP26 must be a turning point in the crisis that is before us. For that reason, earlier this month, President Biden convened the Major Economies Forum on Energy and Climate. The main topic on the agenda was COP26. At the same time, plans were made to leverage the Major Economies Forum, post-Glasgow, as a launch pad for collective concrete efforts to scale up climate action over the next 10 years. One thing is certain: success will require tapping into the very best of global ingenuity and creativity, from brain power to alternative energy power. Working together, the United States and Germany can play a major role in ensuring the success that we so desperately require. To that end, President Biden and Chancellor Merkel launched the US-Germany Climate and Energy Partnership during their meetings at the White House in July. This partnership is concrete. It includes 3 key areas for cooperation. First, we have to work bilaterally and multilaterally to accelerate reaching a net zero future. Second, we must collaborate on developing energy technologies in emerging economies. This is critical to tackling the climate crisis, and it's something where both the United States and Germany are expert in working with other countries. We have to support these other countries and people that will be hit hardest and that have the fewest resources to help them adapt. And finally, at home, we must also invest in a sustainable economy that drives inclusive growth, supports communities, and creates good jobs and a healthy environment. Our example and our actions encourage other countries to set ambitious climate targets of their own. I think you'd agree that no country can solve the climate crisis on its own. Would that we could, but we can do it if we work together. We will all benefit from a just, clean energy transition. And we look forward to working with Germany, above all, on this overarching endeavor on a global Green Deal. I want to thank you for inviting me and the embassy to be part of this virtual forum. I hope you have a great conference. I was really happy to get the invitation to speak today because it's such an urgent matter for our 2 countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you for making it possible, and thank you for your forward-looking introduction. It's a great privilege and pleasure to have you here as an introductory speaker, and we are looking forward to further working with your embassy. Thank you so much for making it. Now we have time for a short break before our next 2 panel discussions will start. We will resume at 6 p.m. with a discussion on Towards a New Transatlantic Green Deal with Janusz Reiter, Jürgen Trittin, Kirsten Westphal, Richard Burt, under the leadership of Friedbert Pflüger. And this discussion will be followed by another discussion, and the next discussion after that will be chaired by Benjamin Becker, and it will focus on the rise of Asia and the future of transatlantic relations. Thank you for listening and looking forward to further discussions and exchanges. All the best.